Have you ever wondered how we got here? Not just you and me, but all of us. Humanity as a whole. It's a story millions of years in the making, a sprawling epic of survival, innovation, and connection. This is the story of the world, our story, and it all begins not with kings or empires, but with a single step. Our journey starts in Africa, over 6 million years ago. The Earth's climate was changing, and the dense forests our early ancestors called home began to shrink, giving way to vast, open savannas. This new environment presented a challenge, but also an opportunity. To see over the tall grasses, to spot predators, and to travel more efficiently, our distant relatives started to do something revolutionary. They stood up and walked on two legs. This is bipedalism. And it was the first giant leap for humankind. It freed our hands, paving the way for the next major breakthrough: toolmaking. Around 2.6 million years ago, early humans like Homo habilis, which literally means handyman, began chipping away at stones to create simple tools. These weren't fancy axes or spears, just sharp-edged flakes of rock. But they were a game changer. They allowed our ancestors to butcher carcasses left behind by larger predators, giving them access to a rich new source of protein and fat. This high-energy diet fueled the growth of our most precious asset, our brain. As our brains got bigger, our tools got better, and our social structures became more complex. Then, about 1.9 million years ago, a new species emerged: Homo erectus, the upright man. These weren't just walkers, they were world-class marathon runners. Taller, stronger, and with even larger brains, they were built for endurance. And they needed it, because they were about to embark on the first great human migration. Homo erectus became the first of our ancestors to leave Africa, spreading out across Asia and Europe. They were pioneers, adapting to new climates and new challenges. And they wielded a powerful new tool, one that would forever change our relationship with the world: fire. Mastering fire, perhaps around 800,000 years ago, was a turning point. It provided warmth in cold climates, protection from predators at night, and a way to cook food. Cooking made food easier to digest and unlocked more nutrients, further fueling our brain's development. Fire also became a social hub. Around the flickering flames of the campfire, our ancestors gathered, shared food, and likely began to share stories. This was the birth of community, of culture. For hundreds of thousands of years, various human species coexisted on the planet. There were the Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, the Denisovans in Siberia, and the diminutive Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, sometimes nicknamed hobbits. But then, around 300,000 years ago, a new player entered the scene, back in our ancestral homeland of Africa: Homo sapiens, US. For a while, we weren't anything special. We had slightly different skulls, a bit more of a chin, but we used similar tools to our cousins. But then, something clicked. Around 70,000 years ago, we experienced what scientists call the cognitive revolution. We started to think in new, abstract ways. We developed complex language, allowing us to share intricate ideas, gossip, and plan for the future. We created art, like the stunning cave paintings in France and Spain. We created jewelry, musical instruments, and elaborate burial rituals. We started to imagine things that didn't exist: spirits, myths, and shared beliefs. This ability to unite millions of strangers around a common story, be it a religion, a nation, or a corporation, is our unique superpower. It's what allowed us to cooperate on a scale never before seen in the animal kingdom. Armed with this new cognitive toolkit, Homo sapiens began their own great migration out of Africa. And this time, it was different. Wherever we went, we outcompeted and likely interbred with the other human species. Within a few tens of thousands of years, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, all our ancient relatives were gone. We were, for the first time, alone on the planet. Our next great leap was the agricultural revolution, which began around 12,000 years ago. After millennia as nomadic hunter-gatherers, some groups of humans started to settle down and domesticate plants and animals. Instead of chasing food, we learned to grow it. This happened independently in at least 9 different parts of the world, from the Middle East's Fertile Crescent with wheat, and barley to China with rice, and the Americas with corn and potatoes. Farming was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it allowed us to support much larger populations, could produce a surplus of food, which meant not everyone had to be a farmer. This led to the specialization of labor. We got soldiers, priests, artisans, and rulers. Villages grew into towns, and towns grew into the world's first cities, like Uruk in Mesopotamia. Agriculture also brought new problems. Our diets became less varied, leading to nutritional deficiencies. We lived in close quarters with each other and our animals, creating perfect breeding grounds for infectious diseases. We worked harder and longer than our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And for the first time, the concept of private property became central to society, leading to social hierarchies and inequality. The Age of Empires was dawning. With food surpluses and growing populations, societies became more complex. To manage these new societies, we needed new inventions: writing, money, and laws. Writing, first developed in Sumer around 3500 BC, wasn't initially for poetry or history, but for accounting, keeping track of taxes, debts, and grain shipments. It was a tool for bureaucracy. Money emerged as a universal system of trust, allowing strangers to trade efficiently. And laws like the famous Code of Hammurabi provided a standardized framework for justice and social order. These innovations fueled the rise of vast empires, from the Egyptians building pyramids along the Nile, to the Romans creating a sprawling network of roads and aqueducts, to the Han Dynasty in China, unifying a massive territory. These empires were melting pots of people, goods, and ideas. They connected a fractured world through trade, conquest, and shared culture. The Silk Road, for example, wasn't just a trade route for silk and spices. It was a conduit for religions like Buddhism, technologies like papermaking, and, unfortunately, diseases like the bubonic plague. The connections forged by these ancient and classical empires laid the groundwork for a truly globalized world. But the next major transformation would be powered not by muscle or bureaucracy, but by a new way of thinking: the scientific revolution. Beginning in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, the scientific revolution was a profound shift in how we understood the universe. We stopped relying solely on ancient texts and religious doctrine and started to observe, experiment, and question everything. Copernicus proposed that the Earth revolved around the sun. Galileo confirmed it with his telescope, and Isaac Newton described the laws of gravity that govern the entire cosmos. The core idea was radical. By admitting our ignorance and using observation and mathematics, we could gain new knowledge and new powers. This new scientific mindset, combined with Europe's imperial ambitions and capitalist economies, unleashed a torrent of innovation. It led directly to the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. We learned to harness the energy of steam, and later electricity and oil, to power machines. Factories sprouted up, replacing cottage industries. People flocked from the countryside to cities in search of work. The world was transformed by railways, steamships, and the telegraph, shrinking distances and accelerating the pace of life beyond imagination. This period brought unprecedented wealth and technological progress. But like the agricultural revolution, it came at a price. Industrialization led to brutal working conditions, urban pollution, and immense social upheaval. It also gave European empires the technological edge to dominate the globe, leading to the age of colonialism and the exploitation of people and resources on a massive scale. The 20th century saw these forces collide in the most destructive wars in human history. World War I and World War II were industrial-scale conflicts, killing tens of millions and redrawing the map of the world. Yet from the ashes of these global conflicts, we have entered an age of unprecedented peace and prosperity, at least for a large portion of humanity. The decades since 1945 have seen fewer international wars, a dramatic rise in global life expectancy, and a steep decline in extreme poverty. We've walked on the moon, mapped the human genome, and connected the planet with the internet. We now live in a single global civilization, where an event in one part of the world can have immediate consequences on the other side of the planet. Our story, from walking on two legs in the African savanna to sending messages at the speed of light, is a testament to our species' incredible capacity for cooperation and innovation. But our journey is far from over. Today we face new global challenges: climate change, the rise of artificial intelligence, and the threat of nuclear proliferation. These are problems that no single nation or empire can solve alone. They require a level of global cooperation that we are only just beginning to learn. The history of the world shows us that we are all part of one sprawling, interconnected family with a shared past and a shared future. Understanding where we came from is the first step to deciding where we want to go next. Thanks for joining me on this whirlwind tour of world history. If you found this journey as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time.